Harris Dickinson was on the show last week, wasn't he?
was.
I mean,
He
he
was.
was on a lot of the show. He was virtually a third presenter on the show last week.
He was lovely, yes.
His movie is called Scrapper. It's out this week, and here's Robbie telling you all about it.
Yes, so Scrapper is the debut feature of a young British filmmaker called Charlotte Reagan, who's made a lot of shorts and music videos. This is her first work on a bigger canvas, although big is kind of a relative term here because it is only 84 minutes long. It's the story of Georgie, who's played by 11-year-old Lola Campbell, who is also a total newcomer. She was street cast for the role. She's living in the council house that she shared until recently with her mother, who's died of cancer. And she's keeping the place pretty much exactly as her mum liked it, and working through, so the sofa cushions have to be exactly where they were, the room must be hoovered, everything's kept very orderly, and she's working through the stages of grief, which are magneted to her fridge door, like a kind of a shopping list or a to-do list, and she kind of thinks she's about halfway through at this point. She's able to fend off social services by playing recordings of her uncle Winston Churchill, which are actually provided by this dingbat local corner shop who's behind the till and will kind of assist by saying, oh yes, we're having spaghetti bolognese tonight, it's all lovely. And these can be played down the phone, and social services are absolutely fine with that. And income comes from stealing and respraying bikes, which she does with her friend Ali. And here's a clip of them at work.
That's my bike.
Hi there. We were just making sure that all of these bikes were road safety, and we were just walking by. Oh, yours isn't, by the way. We were just walking by and we thought it looked a bit,
Yeah. God, I should probably go get that serviced or something.
Yeah, full service. You can never be too careful. Yeah, the bearing's completely gone in the back wheel. Do you want me to be honest?
Yeah. You're far away.
Or just a little bit of lies, or...
How good is Lola Campbell in this?
I'm goodness, it's a completely delightful performance, and it's so good because it's so naturalistic. I mean, we were watching the clip on the screens there, and the way she's kind of shifting her weight from one foot to the other and looking up slightly suspiciously and then trying to affect, there's nothing amiss going on here. We really are checking the safety of your bike, madam. It's really beautifully done. And I mean, obviously this is the result of a phenomenally talented young actor, but also a director who really knows how to draw that out of them. Also later in the film, not much later in the film, a co-star who knows how to bounce off them well. And that is, of course, Harris Dickinson, who shows up on the scene. He plays Jason, who is Georgie's estranged father, who's been working over in Spain for a while. But because he hears that his daughter's now in need of a parent, he's come back to finally do the right thing and to face up to his responsibilities. Georgie is less than delighted to see him. And Harris, when he was on the show last week, he talked about Jason's entrance. He doesn't knock on the door and do the EastEnders thing of I'm your real dad. Instead, he kind of climbs over the back garden fence and sneaks in like an intruder. And an intruder is essentially what he is. So the story of the film is Jason's attempts to reconnect with Georgie. It's a story we've seen a lot in cinema about the errant father and the precocious daughter. Paper Moon, obvious classic example, the Bogdanovich film. Very recently, of course, After Sun, with Paul Mescal as well, another debut British feature from a filmmaker called Charlotte.
The similarities are going to help this, aren't they?
I hope so. Although, I mean, tonally, they're not that similar at all, even though the premise does have a lot in common. I think that the thing with Scrapper is it doesn't really bring any new twists to that formula. Instead, it just allows it to play out in this English council estate setting in very surprising, loving, light-hearted, light-touch ways. When Harris Dickinson was on the show last week, he likened it to Mike Leigh. The name that actually sprung to mind when I was watching it the first time was Bill Forsyth, particularly that sinking feeling. And above all, Gregory's Girl, because I think we've become very bad in British cinema at showing working class characters being quirky and eccentric. So there's this idea that if you are quirky and eccentric, these are qualities that can only be ascribed to, middle class or posh people. And I think there's a degree of exhaustion in the industry with very well-meaning stories of bittersweet struggle. And Scrapper absolutely isn't that at all. It's a very, very naturally charming and appealing film. I think that's its strong suit. The council estate itself is the colour of Woolworth's pick and mix. It was shot by Molly Manning Walker, who is another incredibly promising debut filmmaker. Her film, How to Have Sex, was at Cannes and it won the Uncertain Regard Prize this year. I think it's coming out in October. So there's a lot of kind of young talent bubbling away here. And as I say, Harris Dickinson just gets the absolute best out of his young co-star. The film, I think, is at its best when it's doing almost nothing at all. So the two of them are bonding on a railway station platform. There's a moment where they're trying to pantomime a conversation with a couple on the opposite platform. There's another point where they're in a derelict warehouse just practicing dancing and messing around. I don't know if you've seen, so there's a Japanese film called Kikujiro by Takeshi Kitano. And the dynamic between them in those messing around scenes really reminded me of the kind of aging gangster with the young lonely kid in that. And it's just kind of delightful to watch them kill time together. I think elsewhere, it's got this kind of first film splurgy energy that sometimes works in its favor, sometimes doesn't. There's this completely crazed gambit where you have spiders in the house talking to each other in the style of a Super Nintendo role-playing game, and the dialogue boxes pop up and go beep, 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 beep.
And some sort of documentary-esque moments,
so
slightly gimmicky.
So the spider thing, I think, that does work. It's the kind of thing you would never attempt at any other career juncture than your first film. The documentary cutaways to like the kind of interviews about Georgie's life with these supporting players, to me, they felt really broad, quite sitcom-y, and not exactly tonally in keeping with the rest of the piece. So I think, but this is kind of first film messiness and experimentation. You're absolutely allowed to do this. And I think, what none of this does at all is dampen down the sheer kind of charm that radiates off this thing. And for 84 minutes, you will be, your socks will be comprehensively charmed off, I think.
I loved it too. I mean, I wrote down Shade Meadows, actually. I thought a bit of Thomas Turgoose in This Is England.
Yes, absolutely.
Another,
and again,
performance.
with that kind of amazing comic sensibility, just, lightening the whole thing and making it an absolute pleasure to spend time with.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.